I'm Thibaut, and I'm here at OpenAI, and I build Codex. With Codex, we're building an AI software engineer. I personally like to think about it as a little bit like a human teammate. You can pair program with it on your computer. You can delegate to it, or, as you'll see, you can give it a job without explicit prompting. There's been recently a massive vibe shift. This has started from August, where we had pretty decent usage, and since then, thanks to all of you, we've grown tenfold. Today, I want to start by sharing some of the recent updates that have created this vibe shift. Then, we'll bring some engineers from OpenAI to show you some examples of how we use Codex day to day. Some of them are building here on the Codex team. Some of them are just really excited users of Codex at OpenAI. Let's first talk about some of those updates. Codex now works everywhere you build, whether it's in your IDE, your terminal, GitHub, web, or mobile. No matter where you are, it is the same powerful agent under the hood. The first and most important improvement we made was to completely overhaul the agent. We think of the agent as a combination of two things: the reasoning model under the hood and its tool harness to allow it to act and impact change upon the world to create value for you. First, the model. In August, we shipped GPT-5, our best agentic model thus far. That was until we listened to your feedback, and we improved upon it by shipping GPT-5 Codex, a model that was further optimized for work within Codex, improving by being smarter, better following code style, and adapting its thinking time. One of my favorite quotes from the feedback from you all was that it feels a little bit more like a true senior engineer because it gives such few compliments. And it also pushes back on bad ideas. Next, we completely rewrote the harness to make most of the new models. Add support for planning, MCP, auto-compaction, so that you can have these really long conversations and interactions, and so much more. At this point, we started seeing the CLI usage take off. But there is more feedback. The model felt really good. The agent was useful, but the CLI felt early. We appreciate the feedback, and so we decided to completely revamp the Codex CLI. We simplified approvals modes, created a more legible UI, and added a ton of polish. By default, it works with sandboxing, so it is safe by default, but you always have control. It's been a work in progress, and we shipped a big update last Friday. We'll ship a new release today again. More feedback from you all. A bunch of you collaborate with the agent and want to look at the code at the same time. This is why we shipped it in the IDE directly as a native extension. Here, it works with your code alongside you having control over your IDE. You get this little collaborator. It works in VS Code. It works in Cursor and other popular forks. This immediately took off. Within the first week, we had 100,000 users. Many of you, I'm sure, are in this room. A lot of our users prefer to use Codex in their IDE directly. Part of the magic here is that it is the exact same agent. It is the same open source harness that is powering the CLI bundled right within the extension. At the same time, we were also upgrading Codex Cloud so that you could run many more tasks in parallel. For us, this is still the beginning, but we think it's incredibly cool to be able to command Codex through your phone. Cloud tasks now run 90% faster. They can set up their dependencies automatically and verify their work by taking screenshots and sending them to you. Giving the agent its own computer really feels magical when it works. And then you can start working with agents like this in tools like GitHub or now Slack. Here is an example of one engineer some of you might know him, who had a question. And then another engineer, Steve Lee, immediately jumps on it and delegates it to Codex. Here, Codex receives the entire context from the thread and just gets to work. A couple of minutes later, it posts a solution together with a summary. It actually went, explored the whole problem, and wrote some code. All of this progress means that we can write code so much faster, which also means that we have a lot of code collectively to review. Validating and reviewing code is now becoming a huge bottleneck. We've been thinking about this for a while. Past experiments with code review at OpenAI showed that it could be useful, but also oftentimes noisy. Previous attempts had to be turned off because users were complaining about the lack of signal. So we purposely trained GPT-5 Codex to be great at ultra-thorough code review. It goes through the dependencies, all the code in depth inside its little container, truly explores the contract of your intent and what actually happens in the implementation, and then comes back with high-quality findings. We now find that many teams decide to enable it by default and want to make it mandatory because it is such a high signal finding every time. You can trick it while pairing it with Codex, or you can completely automate it by running on every PR in GitHub. OK, it's been a busy few months for a small, growing team. We've been using Codex to build Codex. There's really no way we could have done it without it. Even more fun has been seeing OpenAI as a whole get accelerated. Today, 92%, almost all of OpenAI technical staff uses Codex daily, up from 50% around last July. Engineers that use Codex submit 70% more PRs per week. And pretty much all PRs are reviewed by Codex. When it finds an issue, people are actually excited. It saves you time. You ship with more confidence. There's nothing worse than finding a bug after you actually ship the feature. When we as a team see the stats, it feels great. But even better is being at lunch with someone who then goes, hey, I use Codex all the time. Here's a cool thing that I do with it. Do you want to hear about it? And so we wanted to give you a taste of that. So let's get to lunch with a few teammates and hear about their stories. They'll show you real workflows of our teams, how they use it every day. Please welcome Nacho to the stage to talk about iterating on UI for the ChatGPT iOS app.
Thanks, Steve-O. Hello, my name is Nacho Soto. I'm a member of the core iOS team at OpenAI. I'm going to do two things today. I'm going to tell you about a workflow that I use frequently when building the ChatGPT app. And I'd like to share a demo that shows you how I do this. Let's start with the demo. Thibaut asked me to build a weather app, so I have a starter project with just an empty window. And I've also asked ChatGPT to make a mock-up of what I want the UI to look like. So I'm going to ask Codex to implement that design. Great. While that's running, let me tell you what's special about how Codex is going to implement this. Working in the ChatGPT core team means I spend a lot of time on infrastructure, performance, but also do some amount of front-end work. Recently, I worked on this small feature where we simplified our personalization screen to make our new ChatGPT personalities more discoverable. And I'm sure you've run into something like this before. With that last 10% of polish, like getting these headers and footers aligned, it's actually taking 90% of the time. But Codex can help you with that 10%. And it can work on that while you do something else, maybe watching some of the other Dev Day talks. You can even have 9 other terminal tabs running Codex if you want to be a true 10x engineer. Who here has been sent a pull request from a junior engineer, and within a few seconds, you know that they didn't actually test it, because there's no way that it works. If you used ChatGPT or any other agent 6 months ago, you were working with that junior engineer. but Codex is not. Like Thibaut said, I would argue that Codex is now a senior engineer. It doesn't just write the code and assume that it works. It will verify that it does. I'm a big fan of TDD, test-driven development. And I think Codex really thrives with that workflow. It will run your tests, fix the code, run your tests again, over and over until they pass. But why stop at unit tests? Codex is multimodal, which means it can also verify its work visually. A few weeks ago, we gave Codex that superpower of being able to see images. So I taught it to generate snapshots for the UI code that it writes. And best of all, it's actually very simple. First, I made this very simple makefile that runs the unit test to extract the SwiftUI previews. And that calls a small Python script, which Codex wrote, by the way. And that extracts those images, puts them in a folder so Codex can find them. Then in the agents file below, I've just told Codex about that script, and I've asked it to use it to verify its work. We use this workflow to build the ChatGPT iOS and Mac app. But you could do the same on web, for example, with tools like Storybook or Playwright. So that's my workflow. I give Codex some tools to generate screenshots so we can verify the UI code that it writes. Let's check in and see how Codex is doing. OK, so if I scroll back, it looks like it read some code, started with a plan to review the existing code, implement the UI, and provide preview data to verify that it's good. So great, looks like it wrote all that code, ran the snapshot tests. Cool, so no, I guess not bad for 3 minutes. Go ahead and run that up. Cool. So obviously, it's a very simple example. But it actually scales without many changes to match larger projects like the ChatGPT app. And it can run for many hours, depending on the tasks, iterating over and over until it's pixel perfect. And speaking of working for many hours, I'd like to pass it over to Friel, who's going to show us how to scale these verification loops to run for longer periods of time and more complex problems. Thank you.
Thanks, Nacho. I'm Friel, and I work on developer productivity. Here at OpenAI, I've set high scores for the longest sessions or the most tokens produced. I'm known as the guy that gets Codex to do this, for being able to use Codex to one-shot big features and complex code changes. I've seen the GPT-5 Codex model work for over 7 hours productively. That was my prompt. Or process more than 150 million tokens over the course of a marathon session. This is one of those projects. It's a complex refactor, a major feature for my personal JSON parser project. And for large projects like this, there can be long periods of time where it seems like all of the tests are failing until the work is complete, especially when you're making that core change. Now, this is a JSON parser built for streaming tool calls, a parser for the AI age. And this PR has over 15,000 lines of code change. And it was created over many hours of work from Codex, but only a few minutes and a handful of prompts from me. Let's walk through how I go from prompt to pull request. We'll do this in just a couple prompts. First, we'll tell Codex that we want a plan to implement our feature. Then, we're going to review that plan and tell it to execute. And finally, we ship. Here, I've opened my project in VS Code, and I'll open up our Codex extension as well. I have a fairly complex feature I want to implement, and I've prepared that in a document for me to read. And I'm going to tell Codex that I want it to write a plan to implement this feature, and I've described the end state. But I want Codex to do the heavy lifting for me and research how to integrate this library into my parser. So what I do is I ask Codex to write a spec. And I'm going to go ahead and kick that off. And actually, I'm going to turn off auto context here. A little bit of an aside. I've rehearsed this a few times, and it's actually found finished specs from my Git history and cheated and copied right to the end of the process. So I'm going to have it really do the work. And you'll notice I don't need to tell it a lot. I've given it my example. I've told it to do some research. Follow the example of the code that I've already got. So while that's working, let me show you what I mean by a plan or an exec spec. This is my plans.md file. Now, I've abbreviated everything here, so we don't have to read all of it. It's 160 lines. But really what I'm doing here is I'm writing a design document for design documents. Codex is now a senior engineer, after all, so we should be asking it to do some of its own paperwork, too. And like most engineers writing a design doc, it's going to start by copying from an example. And I've got one here. And I tell it, this plan is going to be a living document. It's going to describe its big picture. It's going to have a to-do list and progress that it keeps up to date. And I also want to say, why do I keep on saying exec plan? And I'm doing that because I want to give the model a term to anchor on and know when I use the term exec plan, use plans.md to design that, to iterate on it, and follow up. It's good to give it a term that's unique so that it knows to reflect back on that. And when I say that, it's something special, not just any design doc or implementation spec. So in this spec, we've got our progress, our surprises and discoveries. We even have a decision log in here for me to keep track of what it's been working on. Now, normally, I don't ask engineers to write this much. I only do that when maybe I don't like their project. But in this case, this helps Codex steer towards a completed project. It is its memory as it works on this large plan. And after this talk, we'll upload the plans.md recipe to our OpenAI cookbooks so that any of you can adopt it in your repositories. Now, how does it know how to use this plans.md? As I mentioned earlier, I've used my agents.md. I drop a couple lines here in my agents.md, just a few instructions. When you're working on something complex, this is what an exec plan is, refer plans.md, make sure that you're following that. Now, as you can see, it's doing quite a bit of research on the side here, so let's go ahead and look at a completed spec. So I've switched over to a completed session here, and it's written my spec. Let me open up that plan here. So I can review this, I can give it feedback, I can look at, okay, that looks like, quite a lot of words, but it is what I wanted to do. And it has a plan, looks like a couple spikes, some features that it wants to implement, and of course, documentation. So that looks good to me. I'm going to go ahead and tell Codex, let's go ahead and implement. And we can't type today. There we go. And so while that runs, I like to keep an eye on Codex. It keeps something scrolling on my screen. My manager knows that I'm still working. And I like to watch the tests. So what I'll do is I'll kick off these tests. They run very fast. Codex helped me write all of these, by the way, from simple property tests or simple unit tests to exhaustive property tests. There's even some fuzzing in this crate. And so I'll keep an eye on this, and if it stays red for too long, I might intervene and say, Codex, maybe we need to back out. Maybe that plan is going a little off the rails. All right, let's go ahead and look at what it's completed in this project. So I'm skipping ahead to Codex having finished that task. By the way, that took over an hour in my previous session, so we're skipping ahead quite a ways. And it looks like it's written some new tests. They're all passing, which is great. Let's go ahead and look at the changes. OK. Wow. And it looks like it vendored in and even maybe forked or updated the upstream library to make some changes to implement what it needed to do. Now, again, I don't have all day to read all of this to you, so I'm going to go ahead and open up the plan again. So I open up the plan, and I can see in the progress, it's checked off some big items. It's completed some spikes. It's updated documentation in the README. Plans.md specifies that all of these plans have to be a living document, and so I can use this as an executive summary to know what it's accomplished. That way, I don't have to read all of the code myself. OK. It looks like it's done, and the tests are passing. So what I've shown you today is we can go from an an implementation idea, a feature, a prompt, to a PR in only a few steps. Rigorous planning and thorough testing enabled the model to work on this feature for a sustained period of time. And let's just see how many lines of code it's written. Cached. OK, 4,200 lines of code in just about an hour of work. Incredible. Now, I could just merge this as is, but I would really like another set of eyes on this code. Thankfully, we have Daniel up next to talk about code review.
Hello. All right, my name is Daniel, and I'm an engineer here on the Codex team. So today I want to talk about code reviews. As Thibault mentioned, we launched code reviews on GitHub a couple months ago, and it has been a huge hit. Both externally, but especially internally, we love code reviews. We have them running on all of our PRs, and it's finding so many bugs that we would have otherwise missed. And some of these bugs are so complex that you have to read and reread the comment a couple times to even understand what it's saying. So I highly, highly recommend you enable code reviews for all your GitHub PRs. Here's an example of one of my PRs that's on the Codex repo. It's open source. So I pushed a feature, and then immediately Codex started reviewing my code. And it found a P1 issue. Great. So then I said, thanks, Codex. Please fix it. And that kicked off a background task to make that change. And then once that got merged, I said, all right, Codex, now that you have all this, now that you have this change, review it again, make sure we don't have any issues. And then I found another issue. And then I was just embarrassed. So this got me thinking, what if you could have a workflow where you create a feature, and then you review it for bugs, and then if there are any bugs, you fix it, and then you review it again, and then you fix and review and fix and review until theoretically your code doesn't have any issues. So we decided to make this super easy by bringing code reviews to local as well. And I'm going to show you how to do that with slash commands. And this is what I do every day before I even submit the PR. OK, so I'm working on a little feature. You can see it has 3 different commits. It's a pretty small one. And I have the CLI running on the side. So all I have to do is write /review, hit enter, and then you'll see there are a couple different options here. So the first option is reviewing against a base branch, just like a PR. So this would take all of your commits in your base branch, compare it to main, just like a normal PR, and then look at the whole diff and try to find any issues with it. There are other options too, like reviewing uncommitted changes or specific commit or custom review instructions. But what I usually do at the end of the day when I have a bunch of different commits is just review the whole thing. So I select the first option. Now I have to select a base branch. Usually main is the first one. So I hit enter again. And now code review begins. So the question I have is, why is it so good? Why is GPT-5 Codex so good at code reviews? Because we actually trained it specifically on finding very technical bugs. And it will go on for a very long time, researching all sorts of different files. And then when it has a hypothesis for something that could be wrong, it will even write tests, scripts, execute them to make sure that it gives you 1 or maybe at most 2 critical issues that you have to fix before you land your PR. It doesn't give you 20 or 30 different things that it one-shots from just looking at your diff. It doesn't waste your time. So yeah, there's actually a bug here. If anyone guessed, oh, nice. It got it for us. So it's a P0, great. And it's exactly correct. So we aren't supposed to be hard coding the string here into the code. We should be getting that dynamically. So all I have to do now is tell Codex, please fix. And usually, I don't even read the comments, so it just goes. But yeah, and the nice thing about reviews in the CLI is that it actually spawns a separate thread from the parent. So let's say you've been working on this feature, and it is like super biased. You have to do this feature like this. You have to implement it like that. The review thread is separate. It has a fresh pair of eyes, a fresh context, new chat. So it doesn't have that same implementation bias, and it'll help find these bugs for you. So yeah, that is going to go ahead and give us some changes. While that runs, I want to actually show you how you can enable reviews on all your PRs. So go to chatgpt.com/codex, and then you just connect your GitHub, and then there's a button here called Enable Code Review. So this will take you to the code review settings, and you can have like repository level settings to say like, I want this repo to get code reviews, I want that one to not. But I just have this toggle over here that I just say, review all of my pull requests. Please make sure I don't ship any regressions to prod. So let's go back. Fantastic. It made the change. Let's see. That looks correct. Yeah, now it's getting the prompt directory dynamically. So now that this is done, what I want to do is I want to run /review again. So I hit /review, enter, enter. Great. So this will start another review thread. And then once that goes on, hopefully it won't find any issues. But if there are any issues, you can continue it again. And then once that's done, it gives you a thumbs up. You commit. You push to Git. And then you get one final thumbs up from Codex on your PR, and you're merged. So that is what I do every day using /review in my daily workflow before I even create a PR. Thank you so much, and I'll hand it back to Thibaut to wrap it up.
All right, folks, that's it. I hope today's demos gave you a glimpse of how we're shipping faster and with more confidence with Codex, and a little bit about where we're going. If you haven't tried Codex yet, just npm install. This will give you Codex right in your terminal. And you just type Codex, and you could get going and use a lot of the things that we demoed you today. Everything we showed to you today is real, and you can use it right away. Gabriel Peel, one of the people here working on the Codex team, actually just sent me a message that the v045 of the CLI is out, like right now. It has a few incremental updates and also support for OAuth MCP, which I think is very cool. So just go and install it, and this will give you the latest version. And then if you want to hang with a few of the people building Codex, just come and join us at the booths. There will be some of us there and also some of the top users of Codex here at OpenAI. We also have a Q&A on Discord that you can join, and this will start shortly. So come and say hi, don't be shy, and thank you for joining today.